Nearly a week after Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 crashed in eastern Ukraine, the first bodies arrive in the Netherlands, and a team of international investigators is on site as it tries to figure out exactly what happened. Meanwhile, the war of words between Ukraine and US officials on one side and Russia on the other continues over the tragedy. And there has been more violence today as two military jets have been shot down. For the latest, we begin with CCTV's Tony Cheng in Donetsk. Tony, thanks for joining us. First question, very solemn ceremony we're seeing as the first bodies arrive back in the Netherlands, but it was difficult to get them out. What can you tell us about this final journey for the victims?
Well, we saw this morning a ceremony in Kharkiv, the city where they managed to arrive a couple of days ago. And I think that was the point at which a huge sigh of relief was breathed. It was very difficult gathering the bodies, getting them through Donetsk, and then getting them out safely. A lot of negotiation had to be done with the separatist rebels here, who were using it almost as a bargaining chip. I think there was a considerable amount of distaste, both from the Ukrainian authorities, but also around the world, that they were trying to bargain to get these bodies home. That said, they did manage to get them out to Kharkiv. There was a ceremony this morning, very simple, but I think also trying to add a certain amount of dignity to the bodies, which I think many people felt had been somewhat disrespected, being left out in the open for 3 days and then put onto rail carriages and slowly shipped out. So I think at last there was an opportunity to give some dignity back to the victims, and they will now start to be moved back to the Netherlands. The process of identification can also start once they get back to the Netherlands. But there was also something of a sting in the tail. We were told by the separatist rebels when they sent the train off to Kharkiv that there were 282 bodies. When they got there, the Dutch forensic analysts who'd been with the train said they only had 200 bodies. So I think there is something of a concern that there are still bodies there at the site, but clearly a huge site and a lot more investigation to be done.
Yeah, that process continues. You've been actually out at the crash site. What can you tell us there? Obviously the investigation underway there. There has been access problems and also accusations of tampering with evidence. What can you tell us, Tony? You've been there.
Yes, the OSCE, the European organization that's been monitoring the conflict here in the Ukraine for the past 3 months, but particularly active here at this crash site. They've only been observing, they're not investigating. They've been very clear to make that distinction. But they did say last night that some of the parts of the wreckage they had seen had been tampered with. They felt that parts had been cut out, other parts had been removed. Now the separatist rebels say that that has had to happen in some cases so that the rescue effort could get in to certain parts of the crash site which are inaccessible, could remove bodies. But I think there's a concern that there are darker motives, that they've been trying to hide something. That said, we were there today and we found the cockpit section, which is several kilometers away from the main body of the aircraft. And you don't have to look very far to see what, certainly again to me as a layman, what appears to be fairly clear evidence that there was an explosion that caused the plane to break up. If you look at the fuselage and the metal skin outside, it's peppered with little holes. There's scorch marks, and something has gone through it, which has gone straight through metal, which is several millimeters thick, clearly causing massive destruction and the plane to be broken up over a very, very wide area. So as we heard the United States say today, they think this has clearly been shot down. Well, and the evidence, again, to a layman's eye, would seem to support that.
Well, obviously, we have to wait for the results of the investigation, Tony, but the blame game, you're right, has begun in earnest. Trading bars with the US and Ukraine on one side, Russia on the other. What's the latest on that? Who's saying what?
Well, we've seen the authorities here in Donetsk, the separatist rebels who control this city and large parts of the countryside around it, saying that they deny anything to do with this crash. That, to a certain extent, has been supported by social media in Russia, by the Russian media. There are all sorts of conspiracy theories, although I have to say in the last couple of days, less of that from the Russian side, although the Russian Foreign Ministry also proposed a theory that there were Ukrainian planes also in the sky at the same time. That said, they are being less vocal. I think the accepted wisdom here does seem to be that the separatists who do have, I think we've seen them with surface-to-air missiles, incredibly powerful ones that do have the range to knock an airliner out of the sky at 30,000 meters, that they have used them. Again, we've seen 2 Ukrainian planes knocked out of the sky today. Clearly they have the capability, and again, the finger of suspicion points to their involvement in this terrible accident.
Tony Cheng, our man in Donetsk, thank you very much.